Hello, hello, Jeanette Chasworth, the Color Whisperer, and welcome to the show today where we talk about all things home and healing. And today I'm very honored to have a guest. Her name is Robin DePeace, and it's Heartfelt Financial Solutions. And what she does is she helps people get through a divorce. Now, I help people get through divorces by changing their home because it's all about recreating who you are. Because you've been a couple for a long time and now you're not. And so it's a very different identity. And finding that identity again of being single can be difficult. And by showing you who you are and the beauty of you, by finding the right colors, textures, shapes, styles that reflect you, I help with that. Robin helps with a more immediate concern when it comes to that. And she helps you with the finances because it's a lot to unravel the finances and going through the divorce and who gets what and everything. And creating that stability again is really, really important. And she's really good at understanding how to put all that together. So we're going to bring Robin on. And here she is. Hello, Robin.
Hello, good morning. How are you today, Jeanette?
Great. Thank you so much for being on. So let's first of all talk a little bit about how did you get into the financial world and why specifically are you looking at divorces?
I was been in management for many, many years, manufacturing management. And what I've noticed in all of my positions and throughout my career is that women don't, a lot of women don't understand their finances. They don't understand where the income is coming from, where the are coming from. And then something happens in their life, right? And they're suddenly alone. Divorce definitely is a big one, but also a death or dementia, right, of their spouse.
Yeah.
So to be prepared and to know what is going on in your world today is going to help you set up for the future and, the things that happen in life. And it's been about 10 years now when I switched careers into the financial field. And I really wanted to target women so that they really understand. They don't have to understand totally, but they should understand what they own, where it is, the expenses, how to pay bills, so that when something happens in life, they're not totally floored. And I've watched many friends and family go through divorce and they're lost. A lot of them were absolutely lost. They didn't know where the finances were, how do they keep the house, don't they? There's so much to it.
Yeah, I mean, I was married to a mathematician and he spent a lot of time in his world in finance. And he was an actuary at one point, which most people don't know what that does. It's very obscure. And so he wasn't dealing with the day-to-day finance stuff, but he was dealing with more long-term stuff. And so when we would meet with a financial advisor, I'm like, do you understand what he's saying? Oh yeah, okay. Well, once we got divorced, I realized he really didn't understand as much as at least I would have liked him to understand. Or if he understood it, he didn't do what I would have liked him to do with that information. And I didn't know the right question to ask. And, there were things that I wish had been different, but I kind of trusted him because of the field that he was in and his mathematical knowledge. And, I really should have taken more of the reins than not the reins, but at least been more involved than I was.
Yeah, and it's like what you don't know what you don't know. So what are the questions to ask? And there are a lot of financial advisors out there that they say, "Do you understand?" And you're saying, "Well, sure." Okay. And then it's like, and then what? Right. Many years ago when I was married and I was young, we did have a financial advisor, and I kept asking him, are we saving enough? All he would say is yes. He wouldn't tell me, should we do more? How much? He wouldn't ask how much we were putting aside. And so when I talk to people, and it's like, do you understand what percent you're putting and putting away? Is that enough? How do you protect you? How do you protect, your family and yourself? And so I try to holistically work with my clients, right? Because it's not just the investments. It's not just, should you or should you not have life insurance, right? It's like, okay, you have an HSA. What is it? Why should I have one? What's a flex account? What's an investment account?
What is an HSA? I never heard of an HSA.
Yeah, health savings account. It all, and then there's rules and laws and taxes and what's taxable and what's not taxable, right? So that's what I try to discuss with my clients. It's not just the one small sliver of your life, because life is not one small sliver. It's everything.
Yeah. And I know too, when you're going through that divorce, there's so much. I mean, I'm in California, so it really is like a huge earthquake, and it's an emotional earthquake, right? And it's it's like a 7-point emotional earthquake. It can be, it doesn't have to be, but it can be, because you're figuring out, okay, where am I going to live? What am I going to do? Here's all the finances. You're fighting over who gets what, maybe, and then it's like, okay, so now what? And you're still trying to figure all this out, and you're trying to get that grounding again, that strong foundation, which is really important to take whatever the next step is to be you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to find your space. So for what you do, I love it, right? Because maybe your partner moved out, or you moved out, or maybe you're still together in that same house, right? But you're in 1 or 2 rooms and they're in 1 or 2. However that is, it's like, how can you create that safe spot for you to take? Your whole life is turned upside down, right? And the stress level because of the unknown. Yeah. So if we can utilize some of the interior designing that you do, right, to make your safe spot, and then the knowledge that I can help with, it's like, okay, where are you? What do you have? What's the implication? What's important to you? And then it depends. Do you have kids or not? And then what about the pets? And then, it just keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah, I know people that they got divorced, and they got 50-50 custody of the pets. When we got divorced, we had 2 cats, and the cats had already made the decision, so it wasn't a big issue. One of our cats, if she had been human, we'd have been divorced a long time ago. She was so much in love with my husband. Oh my God, it was crazy. And she'd get on him at 3:00 in the morning, and she'd purr and it would, like, at 3:00, at 4:00. I mean, I don't know how many times I didn't look at the clock every time, but many times during the night. And when he'd be gone for a while, and he'd come home, and he'd have to go lay in the bed, and she'd purr, and she'd have to get her purr time in. And we just like, dang, you give more attention to the cat than you do me.
Yeah.
So when it came time to split, it was just like, well, that one's going with you.
Right. Oh yeah, because they would have been really mad if they went with you.
And and she didn't like me. So, I mean, not that she didn't, I mean, the attention was clear who she wanted attention from. And so, I mean, it was just, yeah, I was okay, but yeah.
Yeah, and it really does, and in a lot of ways, the pets are like, well, I can't say kids, but pets
Sure.
will pick which one they want to go with. I
Yeah.
mean, you know who their number one pick is. That's
Exactly.
absolutely true. Yeah.
And the other cat was really more mine, and just it just was. So there was no arguing over that. That was like that wasn't even spoken. It was just like, okay.
Right? Yeah. 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 So let me ask, and I've been divorced and you've been divorced. So, for the finance end of it, did you know some of it or where it was or what everything was and how to split it? Or how did you find out those answers?
um well, we're still working on them, and you've helped me with some of them. It's the where things were was not a, as big an issue as how do we move forward with it. So the my cat's going nuts right now. Sorry. Um, what we had, there was really only a couple issues that we had, um, as far as how things were going to be split, and the rest of it was pretty self-explanatory and easy. The problem came in with future, and how to, you know I mean, we both did say till, we meant till death do we part. It was not, divorce was the most difficult decision that I've ever made. And maybe I should have gotten divorced earlier, but it's like this is what you do. You support your partner, right? This is what
Yep.
we do. We're in this together. We can if we just work through this together, we can get through this, right? And
Right. Right. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't.
right. And there was a lot that I did that supported the household and him, which I don't know, it's been a few years. He's finally seeing how much I did. But
Right? They just don't understand or know, right?
don't
Until
realize.
later.
And you know what? I didn't even realize because I do healing stuff, and I didn't realize how much of his stress I was trying to alleviate. So I didn't even know how much I was doing. So I can't put that all on him. But that's kind of in my nature. I see, and somebody I love is hurting. This is what I do, and I have this ability. I'm going to use it. And so I spent a ton of time trying to alleviate his stress, which probably wasn't a good thing on two levels, because one, it literally made me sick. Secondly, it allowed a situation to continue that wasn't good for him either. And I'm not talking about our marriage, but there was some, there was some stuff that I had begged him. I said, please, you need to change this. You need to change this. You need to change this. For most of the marriage, I begged him, and it took him till I wasn't there alleviating that stress for him to go, oh, this really doesn't work for me as much as I think it did.
Yep. Yes. Yeah.
And
And that's a lot of people,
right.
women do that, right?
And so we're trying to help because, and we do this with our kids too. I mean, I didn't have kids, but I've seen it many times. We do this with our kids too. And it's like, okay, here, I'm trying to be a good wife. I'm trying to give him the strength to go do more. This is what he says he wants. And I'm trying to give, I'm alleviating stress. I'm doing all this stuff. But honestly, it probably would have been better if, a decade ago I said, no, I'm not doing this. part of it is I didn't realize how much I was really doing to begin with. But if I had stopped and he had to feel the full impact of that 10 years earlier, I
Yeah.
bet things would have changed. So,
Yeah, hindsight, right? It's like, because you're right in that moment. And what do you do in that moment is you try to support
right?
until one thing or something happens and it's like, we can't do this anymore,
Right?
right? And then your whole world is turned upside down, right? So who keeps the house? Do you sell it? I know some couples can, um, it's like they don't want to move the kids, so they have an apartment that they both use, but one will stay with the kids in the house for a week, and then they switch, and the next one would come in. And
That's actually I mean, I don't think the kids should have to move. So that's actually a pretty clever solution.
if everyone gets along, if everyone understands,
That's
right?
true.
And I'll tell you, most divorces, that doesn't happen.
I am lucky in that department. I'm very lucky.
Yes, you are very lucky in that department because, to be able to talk to your soon to be ex and figure things out and keep that communication open really does alleviate a lot of the stress. It doesn't alleviate all of it. Absolutely not, right? Because your
Right.
whole life is still being turned upside down. Yeah.
I think for us, it's really more about the future planning that really got stuck. Is like, okay, at my age, it's like, okay, I'm not 30 anymore. It's not like I can just start over, Um, what do I do? How do we plan for, retirement? I mean, that's at 30. Okay, I wouldn't have cared, right? We would, if we had divorced at 30, then okay, well, we did this much, whatever. At 40, even, but at 54, it's a whole different ball game.
You get up into that 50, 60, even 70. I know some people who have divorced that were in their 70s, and it's like everything, because you're planning for two incomes. You're planning for two people. You're planning for two social securities. You're planning for, two, and all of a sudden it's cut in half
Yeah.
or more, especially if, and still to this day, there's a lot of women that are stay-at-home moms. They say, I want to stay with the kids, for, until they're out of high school or out of college, whatever that is.
Or they're doing lesser jobs, part-time jobs, so that they can be there for the kids.
Correct. Yep. Or maybe they don't have kids, but they still, as a couple, that's what they've decided because, I don't know, maybe one of the partners travels a lot. So the other one is like, no, I'll just do part-time. So I'm available when
Right.
you come home or whatever that is. And that can make a huge, huge impact on your retirement and your retirement funds. And how do you figure that out, right? Yeah. It's not easy. And then it's like, okay, but what's taxable, right? And it may not be taxable now, but maybe taxable later on. So how do you figure that in through the divorce also?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking, there were several things you're like, that's taxable, and you sure you want to do that? And I was like, well, I don't know, I mean, it's because I don't know exactly what's the repercussions of that being taxable, really. I mean, there's a lot of questions there. I've just was dealing with, I'm looking for a new accountant, and so I'm asking questions and stuff, and talking to this guy. He's going on and on. He's talking up above my head, right? And,
yep.
I use this phrase all the time. It's like, look, you know what? I don't know what you do. I'm talking to my bookkeeper. I'm trying to interview bookkeepers too. And like, look, I don't know what you do. I can tell you more about chairs than you ever want to know. You will die of boredom. I can talk about chairs that long. as nobody wants to know what this chair's name is and that chair's name is and why and how did and this chair can help your health. Well, that one's a little bit interesting, but like I can tell you more stories about chairs and draperies than anybody who wants to know. And that's the thing, we all know our own business really well, to a place where we can just like, for us it's normal. For me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a Thonay chair, that's an Eames chair. Up there, what, huh? It's like, what's an Eames chair? Like, you remember Fraser's chair? And, oh yeah, okay, well that's an Eames chair. Okay, got that. It's like, oh, what's a Thonay? I mean, I can tell you things, but like most people don't care. And so when I'm talking to somebody about things that are financial or bookkeeping, and like I don't know how to do bookkeeping. I mean, to me, this money goes in, money goes out, right? I mean, this is not a creative field. There's not like 100 ways you can bookkeep. I mean, I can design a room 100 different ways, but bookkeeping, it's like, okay, the money came from here, it went here, it went out there, like.
But there are a few things in bookkeeping they need to know. That's they do. Right.
But I don't need to learn I don't want to learn how to be a bookkeeper so that I can hire somebody. I don't want to learn how to be a CPA so that I can hire somebody. I expect that person to give me their expertise, because I don't want to be the expert. I don't want to go, I studied a long time to know all those chair names,
Right. And it's and to talk about your business or my business, right? Yeah. In a way that everyone can understand it. It's like, right. And this is what we watch out for, and this is why we do this. And then, yeah, so, in your field, the design and the colors and the chair of a placement, the placement of a chair, that stuff. I don't. I just throw it in a room. I'm absolutely horrible at designing.
And most people aren't, I mean, like, I don't do what you do. And one thing I did really appreciate is I call it, you speak English as well as you speak finance, because there's a difference, I mean, when I walk into a room, if I walk into a room and go, well, you've got this, and this is that style, and that's that style, and we're going to do this. And let me tell you, the knowledge is up here. I could blow somebody's mind away.
Yeah, and I don't care.
I don't care. And then all I'm doing is alienating myself from them. Okay, yep. I sound smart for 5 minutes, but then they get really intimidated. No, that's not what it's about. It's about being able to have the relationship and saying, this is what you need here and why. And that's really what it comes down to. And I love when we were talking, that's exactly what you did. Hey, Jeanette, I see a problem here. You got to fix, this is how you fix it. Hey, Mark, you got a question?
Yeah, I did. I was listening to y'all, and y'all having a very enriching and wonderful conversation. And then I was going, like, I had a couple of questions I was going to ask Robin and everything. One of the things is that I am, well, a couple of things. One is family-oriented finances, and the other is more relationship, but they are somewhat tied in, because I'm still, y'all were talking about age in that single space, even at 61 and everything. And I know that sometimes when you get involved with relationships, sometimes you want to help out on the financial side and see what you can do on the financial side, but at the same time, you don't want to get too enthralled in the financial side, because you don't want to get too engaged, and then there is no future in the dating space and all in that. So I just wondering your thoughts around that, because I do know some people that will get into that dating, whether they're in their 60s or their 50s, and want to split costs and even sometimes buy things together. And sometimes I'm going like, you sure you want to buy that house together? You're not even sure that y'all going to be sticking together as a couple and everything, but they are concerned, and they sometimes want to get joint items even in that dating space. So I was wondering your thoughts around that. And then I have a more family-oriented question as well that is somewhat in that same line.
So that, that's an absolutely great question, right? Because as we get into our 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, and we start dating, it's like, how much do I tell them Do I have a lot of money? Don't I have a lot? What's my income? How do you figure all of that stuff out? So if my opinion, definitely my opinion, keep things separate, right? Now, if you do move in together, I would look at both of your incomes, and the one that has the more income may pay percent more of the bills or the finances or whatever. If you agree, and this is definitely something to talk about, open up one joint account that would have both your names in, that only the money that is put into there is used for the household, for the mortgage, the rent, or maybe you put in extra, and so it's like, and one credit card that you use for when you go out to dinner, when you guys do things together, go on vacations, and then everything else can stay a little bit separate. Now, your beneficiaries and all of that's another discussion, who you're going to leave your stuff to, right?
Yeah.
And the wills, but that's what I have found for a lot of couples, that it works. Or you keep things separate and everything goes on a joint credit card, and that's the one that you always use.
No,
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. But one of the things that I know happens, and I don't know whether y'all have experienced it, but I've definitely experienced it, is that sometimes even if you're in a roommate situations, there are common spaces and everything, and a lot of times things are brought into those common spaces. I can't tell you how many times I have seen conversations with roommates, both my own roommates as well as friends' roommates, where they have brought food into the household and brought it into the refrigerator, that it becomes a question: is it game for everybody, or is it only game for the people that brought it? And I know that some people are very particular about that. They're like, I brought in that particular dish because that's a dish that I enjoy, and I don't want you to touch that. And other people are more open to the fact of, if I brought a dozen apples, then anybody can have the apple that wants to get the apple. Whoever gets it, first come, first serve. But I have seen some very interesting discussions, even with friends of mine, both in the roommate space as well as in folks that are living together. So I was just wondering your thoughts around that, because I've definitely seen some fascinating conversations. Currently, I'm living alone, but I've definitely been in that roommate situation. And sometimes you bring the food item in, and it's open game. And then some people get very, I hate to use the term, but it's a very true term, very anal about what they brought in, and they're kind of like, no, I'm not going to. I brought it in. There's got, in some cases, my name on it. You weren't supposed to touch it, and they get a little antsy about that. But I was just wondering your thoughts.
Yep. So I've seen it a couple different ways, that they break up shelves, and they say anything on this one you're not allowed to touch. Cupboard space, this is my cupboard. This is just mine. Or this cupboard is for both of us. And this also can come in with the design aspect of, that Jeanette can help out with. Some people, they buy a small apartment size refrigerator and freezer, and they just use that. So it is discussions, and it's interesting. And it's not a one and done discussion, is it?
No.
When you're living with it, it's ongoing all the time. Things change, life changes. Maybe you feel more comfortable, and it's like, no, that's okay, I don't care. Or it's like, oh no, you ate my pizza and you weren't supposed to. So then you go and buy your own refrigerator, whatever that is. But definitely, and in a lot of ways, it's just like being married, or living together, and that design space, it needs to be talked about, right? What works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the thing I was going to ask about the family, and then I'll let you and Jeanette go back to y'all's conversation and everything, was, I know that there is a stereotype that the older person is supposed to be the one that knows all the knowledge of the family goings on and everything of that nature. But there are some of us that are not the best financial planners, so we know our weaknesses, so we don't necessarily go into that role, even though that's the stereotypical role. I am fortunate that both of my parents are both living and doing quite well and everything, but if one of them was to get sick or to be at that end of life time frame and everything, I would not hesitate in letting folks know that Malik, my younger brother, who's 7 years younger, would probably be the one that would be handling the financial aspect, because he is a better financial planner and a better financial person than I am and everything. So I know my weaknesses, and therefore I would not have any problem doing that. But I think that there's a stereotype that the older person is going to be the one that handles it and everything. But I was wondering your thoughts as to whether you dealt with that with families where the younger person, and I even have a cousin that she's even younger than my brother. I think she's about to hit 50 very shortly and everything, but she is oftentimes the person that is in charge of her family, because she's definitely been involved in the banking industry and other industries, so she knows a lot about those kind of things that maybe even her older sister doesn't know at all in that space. So I was just wondering your thoughts about that age dynamic and how that can play into finance.
Age has nothing to do with it. It all depends on the family dynamics. And I'll tell you, those conversations with your parents should be now. You should make sure that they have that will. If they have assets and they don't have a will, it will wind up in the court system. I'm dealing with my aunt and uncle who never had children, and both of them passed away a couple of years ago. They didn't have a will. They had no kids. And so I had to go through the court system to get guardianship and conservator. Mm-hmm. So one has to do with their health, and one is their money or their assets. And right now we're at about $18,000 in lawyer fees.
Wow.
Okay. So have these conversations now with your parents. And I'll tell you, some parents don't want to talk about it. They just don't. So then try and find out where, and then siblings, if you have those siblings, it's like, can one of the siblings talk to them more than another one? And the siblings themselves should have that discussion. Do you know what they have? Who's going to take care of it? Do you know, all of this stuff? And then have that open conversation now, and when something happens, have the open conversation with your siblings so that you all know what's going on and hopefully agree on what's going on with the one sibling that may be in charge. Now, there's a book I give to a lot of my clients, and it's called, I know this is kind of crass, but it's called I'm Dead, Now What? And in this book, and it's written, who's the will? Where is the will? Where are my bank accounts? Where are my investment accounts? Who's my beneficiaries? Where's the phone numbers? Where's the email addresses? Property, passwords, right? Into your email accounts and your phones, and all of this should be written down somewhere so that somebody has that and can give that to the spouse, to the sibling, to somewhere. And age has nothing to do, it's all about who's knowledgeable, who can take control.
No, that makes a lot of sense. As you were just saying that, I was thinking to myself that my mother has 3 sisters, 2 living, and we actually just celebrated her 81st birthday this past Wednesday. So not a couple of days ago, but the one before that and everything. But that being said, she has 2 living sisters and 1 that passed away. And they also had a brother that passed away when he was an infant. So he wasn't part of the family, but there's land and there's property, and they have knowledge of that property and who got the property and everything. And I know that they divided it into sections, into like the four of them had their sections and all of that. I don't know, and I need to check with my brother, that the next generations have done enough of that conversational thing. So I know that my cousins that lost their mother and dad, they are in control of that section, but I don't know that the rest of us cousins know about the entirety of the sections other than our own individual sections. So it seems to me that if we're going to do true generational wealth, that you need to pass that knowledge down from generation to generation so that everybody is in the knowledge pool, for lack of a better term.
Absolutely, especially if you own property together. And then what state is it in? What are the tax laws when you inherit it? What are taxes on it? There's so many different things, and it depends on what state you live in also.
Yeah.
So you not only have all of the federal laws for the inheritance and maybe an estate tax depending, right? And then you have this property and someone dies. How does it go to the next person?
Right.
And okay, orchid and cousins buy out cousins. I have to have that conversation or try to have that conversation.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's in North Carolina, by the way, and you're right, because it has both houses and timber, because there is definitely timber, because I know that my mom and her aunts have definitely sold some of the timber rights when they have needed it. And it also has some hunting land on it. So they've also given people access to it for hunting and everything. I think there's a pond there as well. Matter of fact, I know there's a pond. There might even be 2 ponds that are on there.
Well, see, now that water, that brings up a pretty good issue. What if someone gets hurt on that property? Who's liable? All 4?
Right.
Or the person that gave them permission. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know these answers. I am not a lawyer, but it's like, well, you should think about this to help protect yourself, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I definitely appreciate it. But that was my quick questions and everything. I'm going to turn it back over to Jeanette. But yeah, those are things that were popping into my head as I was listening to y'all.
Okay, there's one other thing I want to quickly bring up is when you do have, like your bank accounts and your investment accounts, and you have your primary beneficiary, make sure you have a contingent beneficiary. Okay, so double check. Always have at least 2 people if in that list for the beneficiaries, because if not, if you only have that one person and there's no one after that, things can happen and you might wind up in court, and it can be a mess.
It sounds like it. So on that note, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeanette. Always great conversation. You always bring amazing guests, Jeanette.
Thank you.
And then too, when you have a will, I've been through this. Oh my gosh. If there's any questions that you're uncertain of, make sure you go over that with the person, because I've been through some wills who there was a will, fortunately, but they were so vague and so
contradictory.
Yeah, that like it really almost didn't matter, and then the executor did some things that, in my opinion, were really unethical. And the other people involved, I wasn't named in the will, but I ended up being mediator.
Oh, sure. Yes.
So there were things that were done that were not ethical. And then there were major family concerns that were not addressed in the will. So when you're putting the will together, you really just got to address all the issues and talk to the kids, talk to whoever is in charge, talk to who's going to be the executor. How do you want XYZ handled? Because otherwise they're guessing. And I've seen 3 wills where the executor ended up really doing some stuff that was completely unethical, wrong. They end up stealing from the
estate.
They end up stealing from the estate, and they did completely opposite of what the person even very specifically put in the will as to what their wishes were. But they're the ones dealing with it. So I guess part of it is just because you write it down doesn't mean it's going to make it so either. And you've got to really be clear with the executor that this is what I want. And, will you agree to it?
Absolutely. That's why you have to. So a will is there to cover everything that doesn't have a beneficiary listed, like your bank accounts and those. I mean, they're pretty straightforward. Okay. And the will is there. You're right. The executor should be on the same page as the person making the will itself and what their wishes are. Now, the will covers everything that doesn't have the beneficiary listed, like possibly the house or other property or cars, vehicles, oil rights or something. I don't know, whatever it is, right? Or that painting that's in the house, or the desk, right? The furnishings. So that's what that is there to cover, and you are absolutely correct that the executor should be on the same page as whose will it is. And then you should also have a power of health and power of financial.
So and talk a little bit about that, because I've not heard. I know what a power of health is. I don't know what the power of financial is.
So power of financial is if something happens to you that let's say you get in a car accident and you're in a coma, right? And I'm going to say a month. The power of financial gives someone the right to pay your mortgage, to pay your bills, that you trust them enough, and it's a legal document that they have the right that, to keep your financial stuff going until hopefully you get better and can get back to it. Or if not, then they will take care of that until you pass away, and then everything else kicks in.
Right.
Okay, then the will does. Yep.
Yeah, that would, if something were to happen to my ex and, I could go in and I could write checks, but I would have to do it out of my money. And if it was long term, I can't do that.
Correct.
Have access to his bank account.
Correct. So that's what that power of financial is for, that if he wants you to be, the power of financial, that if something happens to him, that you know where that checkbook is, you have this legal document that's been notarized, right? Signed and notarized, and that you can show the bank. It's like, listen, I can legally sign these.
Right.
And I can pay these bills and I can do whatever, and then when the person passes away, hopefully not right away, but when they do, that's when the executor takes over. Right.
In theory, that's the same person.
Pardon?
In theory, that's probably the same person.
In theory, yes. Sometimes it can be different, but, and sometimes, and again, I'm not a lawyer, and state laws differ. And then in some power of financial, even if you pass away, that person still is the one who will take care of the estate. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. And I can help as a financial advisor. I can help with simple wills and trust and power of health, power of financial. And because it goes all through a lawyer. So I'm like the person that inputs the information. And then it goes to a lawyer for them to double check everything, right? Because again, I'm not a lawyer. I would just be the intermediator.
It's me again. I did have another quick question for you, Robin. How important do you think it is for folks to have a financial advisor in general? Because I know we oftentimes hear the story of the entertainers and the athletes that did not have a financial advisor, and then they went dead broke. And even the stories of the lottery winners that get a windfall and then they don't necessarily have the wherewithal to actually maintain this big money that they get, whether that's through a lottery or other kind of prizes and everything. So I'm just wondering, as I was listening, how important do you think it is for individuals in general, whether they're here or around the world, to have a financial advisor in their life?
I think it's important to have one in their life. Now, if they have one on an ongoing basis where that advisor is also taking a look at all of the investments, make sure that you know what it's costing you, what they're doing, and meeting with you at least once a year for the investment end. Or if it's someone that you just want to hire for an hour or two and talk about everything that you have as a consultant, you can do that too if you have the assets for it, right? Now, let's just say if you're on Medicare and Medicaid, and let's say you own a house, probably not, because you may want to talk with one about what happens with the house, right? Because or the vehicles. But if you're on Medicaid, there's no money assets, right? If you have, I would say that you should at least consult with someone if you have even $50,000 and above in an IRA, a 401k, a pension, if you own a house or a couple properties. And again, it may be on an ongoing basis, or it may be just once or twice, but find someone that is a fiduciary, meaning that they have your best interest at heart at all times. And then somebody who can explain different choices, right? Because there's always different choices of what you can do with your stuff. So make sure that someone tells you a little bit about the different things and why are they suggesting that particular way of doing things and not the other. And I can't get into any specifics. I just can't. But
that makes sense, because the other thing that was crossing my mind as I was listening to y'all was, I'm oftentimes fascinated, and I think I mentioned this to Jeanette before, how many people have a lot of things that are worth a lot in their house or in their apartments, but they don't necessarily appraise it or know what that worth is and everything. I know that I've got a decent amount of old records that are laying around here, and some of those may even have some worth. They may only be worth a penny or two. I've never actually got them checked and everything. And I know that there are some books, including some classic books that I have here in the house, and there might even be some family items that came by in terms of her heredity, not heredity, in terms of inheritance and all in that kind of way, that are maybe not even here, but at mom's house, that might have worth that I don't necessarily know the value of and everything. Because I'm thinking that there are a lot of times that we don't know the value of what we have. And I just wonder your thoughts around that, because I think that a lot of times we have items and we think, hey, that looks good. That's a piece of art, or that's a piece of whatever that we have collected, but don't necessarily try to appraise it and figure out what the actual value is.
Yeah, and if you think that it may be worth anything, it's like either let somebody know that, and put it in that book, right? Or write it down for your executor, get this appraised. I think it's worth something, right? And so that at least they know that they should look into it if you're not going to. Right. And again, it's that open communication and writing things down. I would try and do that. A lot of times you could get somebody to come through the house that is in estate sales and look around the house, and they're very knowledgeable in a wide range of items, so they could probably tell you, they may not give you a specific dollar amount, but they might say, that needs to be appraised, that needs to be appraised, that you think that's worth money, that really isn't.
And sometimes they're just sentimental things. I'm going to turn it back over to Jeanette, but I think I've told Jeanette that there is a dog I item, and I actually saw it when I went to visit Mom recently and everything, and it's literally just a picture of some little dogs that go into the doghouse if you were the bad kid and everything. So I'm thinking that was probably a very affordable thing from like maybe Sears or something like that. It probably wasn't costing that much to my grandparents and everything, but it has a lot of sentimental value. I'm sure that me and my cousins will probably be arguing over who gets that. Right now, it's staying in mom's house, but I'm sure that folks will be like, I was the bad one, I need to have that one, and all along those lines. So I'm sure they'll have some sentimental values at some point or another. And we were actually talking about some other items like that. Like, I know that there is a glider that has been passed on to one of the aunts, which is the old sliding glider, and it's kind of rusty, so it probably doesn't have that much value, but folks will probably be wanting that as well, just because of the sentimental value as well as the sentimental value of some of the other items. I think there's a freezer that's like one of those big freezers that you can have in the houses, and some of those other items like that. And there might even be a rocking chair that will have some sentimental value as well.
And that can be put right in the will or as an addendum to a will. Who gets the print? Who gets the rocker? Who gets all of those things, right? So that it is very clear. So it can stop a lot of infighting, especially at that time. And this maybe sound kind of strange too, but if your parents, somebody passes away unexpectedly and everyone has keys to the house, mm-hmm. that executor may want to get those locks changed ASAP.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Jeanette, don't worry. I'm not getting the wandering Jesus, because that my brother or other people can have, because I told you before about the eyes that were the portrait of Jesus, and it looks like the eyes were following you all around and everything. So I'll let one of the other brothers keep that one.
There you go. Absolutely.
So Robin, we only have a few minutes left, but I want to give you some time to, like, what are some tips that absolutely people need to do, and how can we work with you? What, I want to you really just give yourself a good plug as far as working with you. Really opened up my eyes. I'm so grateful that I met you, that you were there. And I want to let you give some tips. It's like, okay, if you only do one thing, there's 3 steps or whatever, but like, what are the key things that everybody needs to do with their finances?
Okay. And Jeanette, I've loved working with you too, and I look forward to working with you in the future. And I love what you do, and the design and redesign of people's homes. That to me is priceless, right? To make people feel comfortable in their home. After going through what I'm going through with my aunt and uncle, the number one thing is have a will. Get it, power of health, power of financial. The second thing is know and write down where your money is. Know where your money is coming in. Where is it going out? Know your expenses. Know your income. And if you're not that one spouse that really takes control of everything, at least have the discussion, right? With your parents, with your kids, with your spouse or soon to be spouse, whatever that is, have that discussion. Where are things? Where are the retirement accounts? Where are the investment accounts? Where are the properties? Right? Get it written down. Make sure somebody knows. And a lot of us are alone now, right? Where we like you, right? You have no kids. So it's like, who are you going to pick that if something happens?
The cats can't do much.
Right, cats can't do much, right? That's right. So who are you going to pick that if something happens, you wind up in the hospital, you wind up, dead, right? Who knows where the keys are? Who has that will, that information? Right. I mean, to me, that's the biggest thing. And how can I help? I do work on a consulting basis, on an hourly basis. So if somebody just wants, I do 30 minutes free consult to see if I'm even the right person for you, because I may not be, right? And you may not like me, I may not like you. You have to like each other to work together, in my opinion.
Each other.
Yep.
Same thing with my
So
business. You got to trust each other.
got to trust each other. So I can do consulting, I do investments, I do businesses, 401ks, SEP simples. I can help with the wills. Go on my website. It's called
Yes.
heartfeltfinancialsolutions.com. On there, you'll find a lot about me and what I do. If you Google me, you will find me. Robin, Robin, Depies, Depies. And on my website, there's a link that you can schedule an appointment with me, and let's have a chat. And let's see if I am the right person for you. I do help a lot of people plan their divorce. It's like you're going to need this information. Pardon?
Yeah. You didn't even talk about that, because that was honestly one of the I probably would have gotten divorced earlier if I had known how to plan for it and have so that when I walked away, I would feel like I had some, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd work with a lot of people on planning your divorce, planning that exit strategy with or without your partner's knowledge. But it's things you're going to have to know. So that will help you and your stress level. So yeah, planning divorces, planning marriages. What do we do with money? What are some ways of dealing with being single, being married? All of this fun stuff.
Yeah. Mark, you have a question?
Yeah, you have to bring Robin back to talk about that aspect and everything all along those lines. I was actually also going to tease you because you said the cat couldn't help and everything, but there was recently an article that I was sharing with the show before you because a service dog actually got their diploma from Seton University. So maybe the cats can help you with everything because the service dog was very important and had helped the young lady get her degree. So I think it was the chancellor or somebody that was high up in Seton Hall gave the dog a diploma as well. So definitely there is hope for your cats as well.
There was an episode of Designing Women. This is a long time ago, right? So, and the cat inherited everything. There's this big mansion, and the cat inherited everything. It was their version of Morris the cat. It was a different. They couldn't use Morris the cat, but that's what it was. And so it was this big house, and like, why'd they leave? Crazy lady left everything to the cat. I'm like, no, the cat's the one that made all the money.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And you can leave it to a cat, except you have to have a human be the executor over it, right? But that's funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
All right, let's give your website one more time, and then I think it'll be time for us to go. But thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and we'll have you back. That'd be wonderful.
I had a great time, and it's a great discussion. Thank you so much. My website is heartfeltfinancialsolutions.com, or just Google Robin Depies, and you're going to find me. Or you can call or text me 719-761-1802.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So if you're struggling with finances or divorce, you got to call Robin. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. That was a wonderful, wonderful show. Robin is a wealth of knowledge. Going through divorce is hard on many levels, and she does make it easier, as do I. I'm really there kind of at the fourth stage of grief when you're like, okay, this is not my life anymore, and I'm ready to take on something new, and I have to shed this skin, right? So my dragonfly is my moniker. Not my moniker, the part of my logo, because it's all about transformation, and we got to shed that skin of who we were to become who we really are. All right, we got a commercial, I think, that we're going to be showing. Maybe it's Kendo Spice, because I love Kendo Spice. I just got some for a friend for a present, and I can't wait to see how how she likes it because they're just really good. So, Mark, do we got a commercial?
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.